Do you ever have an idea that's just consumes your imagination to the point you just can't stop thinking about it? Because that's basically what happened to me. With the year of the dragon coming around, I spent the last of my 2023 diving down a bit of a rabbit hole, largely because I don't really have an art style. So I took this tree dragon concept I had as a chance to dive into some styles that not only I really enjoy, but something I can merge aspects I like with a few things I already tend to do when drawing. The first road bump I hit was figuring out exactly what I wanted from the style. On one hand, I love the unwieldy flow of watercolor. I love the silkiness and control of oil painting, yet I also love the boldness and contrast you get from ink. I love all of these different media, but not all of them merge together very well. In fact, a lot of things I like tend to be very contradictory to one another, and that's what makes figuring out an art style a complete pain in the butt. I eventually decided to reference Sumie style, as it's a style of painting I've really admired for a long time, as well as some more general graphic art sort of styles like what you'd see on a t-shirt, since I want to hopefully put this art on shirts and things in the future. But there was one more road bump that was halting the process of figuring out exactly what I wanted style-wise. My second and probably most apparent struggle was definitely the dragon's anatomy. Not only was it tricky pinpointing how I wanted the dragon to look in general, but upon realizing that I don't draw dragons a lot, so I severely lack the knowledge of the danger noodle anatomy necessary, it very much so hindered my process. I realized because I wanted a dragon that was kind of swirling back in space, that I really had to convey that properly, but man, was it hard. I don't know how many others are like me out there, but between the trying to understand the depth around where the limbs are attached and where the spine branches protrude, all of that was just hurting my brain. So, to combat this, I decided to trust in my 3D skills that I've been focusing on for the past few years, and successfully made a block out of Mr. Squiggles here. It allowed me to really explore what the dragon would look like from every angle, and gave me a better understanding of both the anatomy and the depth that I really needed. I'll try to leave a link in the description if you want to see the live stream of me working in 3D, but with the block out finished, I could finally start exploring the art style. Unlike my prior attempt, I opted to add more detail and have a larger focus on line art than I had initially planned. I found that it aided me in keeping that boldness I love from ink, while also allowing me to define the edges of where I place the watercolor effects. Now, I did an initial test of ink wash look to see how I would go about coloring in Mr. Squiggles, but I wasn't sure how I felt about it, so I decided to get back to it later. Next, instead of finishing the line art like I was planning to, my ADHD kicked in and I chose to sprinkle in a little color again. Luckily, unlike real watercolor, I was able to use the same brush as an eraser and make some nice highlights, even though not all of them make sense, admittedly. Having finally finished the line art, I put a layer of blue underneath so that I could clip to it and make my life a ton easier. Remember, there's no need to color inside the lines if your clipping mask can clean it for you. Once I discovered that, I always felt that it was just so useful. Anyways, I finally got to try a second approach to coloring the body. I largely kept a looser shading style, really trying to mimic a traditional ink wash look. Then I worked in separate layers, adding in other details such as wood grain, which seriously helped with giving the vibe of a wood dragon at this point, not just A dragon who happens to have a couple of trees on his noggin, you know? I continued to push the contrast in this piece as I was trying to capture more of that depth again, but I think I actually succeeded this time. I started adding some nice rim lighting that helped even more with adding depth and making it pop, but then I got distracted yet again. This time I went back to the treetops, playing with multiple colors to add a little extra dimension, as well as finally settling on coloring the eyes to match the leaves. Originally, I planned on making the illustration pure black and white. However, my curiosity got to the best of me, and I tested out what the body would look like if I tinted it a little brown. I played with a few options in an attempt to convince myself I don't need to add the brown, but alas, I loved it too much, and the rest was history. Finally, things started wrapping up as this illustration took way longer than I had expected due to the Danger Noodle anatomy saga. But now that I've established a proof of concept, or rather proof of style, it's time to put it into practice. So, as to not to continue to bore you with a repetition of my voice, let's spice things up with a little montage. Totally not because I'm running out of things to say. So I fully intended for this video to be released back in February. Alas, first video perfectionism teamed up with life and decided to kick my ass. Better late than never, I guess. But without further ado, here are my final reflections on this project. Now, I'm sure this title and thumbnail made it seem like I found this style on my first attempt, but if I'm completely honest, it's taken me years to get to this point. Even after these illustrations, I noticed during my weekly streams, even the smallest of change can have the most drastic impact on how the style looks in the end. There's always been this pressure of like finding my style, finding out what I want to do, and now I think I'm at the point where I can at least do enough to really find that. But let's just say I'm choosing to see this as a way to set a baseline, not just for my style, but also as my brand as an artist, instead of trying to say I have everything nailed down already. Thus, I will be continuing to refine this style of mine, and I hope you will at least find some entertainment with my artistic journey along the way, whether it's through concise videos like this one that summarize my process and what I've learned, or during my streams in real time. I appreciate all the support I get. Until next time, ciao!